Hi everyone, welcome to week 5. Just wanted to go over some information from week 4. Hope everyone had a good weekend, and for those that are sports fans, hope everyone enjoyed the Super Bowl last night. It was a fabulous game, probably one of the better I've seen in a while, and I'm not really an Eagles fan, but I'm just happy to see the Patriots lose. So, so that was a good game in my book. So, I just want to talk a little bit about our material from last week. So, in our discussion board, I thought we had a great discussion about subjective and objective weaknesses and strengths. So, this is something that is important when we're examining our organizations and thinking about these things from a strategic planning standpoint, and especially in the healthcare world where we're really so much of our work now, we really do have a subjective component. Back in the day, way back when, much of our work was objective in nature. You cared for the patient, they got well. We had objective measures such as mortality, morbidity, etc. But now, with the advent of patient satisfaction scores and whatnot, actually having an impact on our reimbursement, and then also with the fact that and this is slightly skewed in Western PA, which it makes for, not for everybody, but for many, makes for not as huge an impact. But in many markets, most patients can see any provider because in many markets, the insurance marketplace is wide open. I live in New York. I can go to Blue Cross and Blue Shield providers, which is everybody. Everybody participates with everybody else for the most part. So I'm really going to choose the provider that subjectively I feel provides me with the best service. Now, I may look at those objective numbers, but I'm going to make my own subjective opinion on what type of service they provide, service in their office or their facility, but then also those objective numbers which are provided out online via reviews, via Medicare Compare websites, etc. So the consumer decision is also very much a subjective piece that again, back in the day, really was not. People went to the place that their insurance accepted, or maybe that their family went to. So the subjective opinion of the patient is really much more impactful than it used to be from a choice of provider perspective. We also got into some discussion about the subjective opinion from an employee perspective. So the opinion of an employee of the manager, of the workplace, and this can be really important when it comes to trying to hire really quality staff and making sure that morale is high, you're treating your employees well, and then that also reflects on the patients, because if morale is low, physicians, nurses, other clinical staff becoming burned out, then there is the potential that that will reflect in the patient satisfaction scores. So it's kind of a vicious cycle, and in trying to keep a high level of morale generally will improve all of that. So let's talk a little bit about the quiz questions. So there are 2 quiz questions here specific to competitive advantage that were issued. So the first one was: the primary objective of an internal environmental analysis and competitive advantage is to discover competitive advantage through resources, competencies, and capabilities. So the correct answer to that is true. I should have stated first, everyone did really well in the quiz this week. There were only a couple questions that people over the whole group got wrong. So there's only a couple here for us to go over. But so the correct answer to this is true. And generally, competitive advantage I think the textbook here talks specifically about strengths and weaknesses, and obviously we spent a lot of time talking about strengths and weaknesses. Kind of measuring those strengths and weaknesses and understanding them that's really going to help us to gain that competitive advantage. But what is that? How do we measure those strengths and weaknesses? How do we discover that? How do we discover that competitive advantage? Well, through our resources, our competencies, and our capabilities. So, understanding where we are better than our competitor can help us with those things. So that's why that answer was true in that case. The second question, also about competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is often discussed on 3 levels. Which 3 levels? So our correct answer for this was global, industry, and firm. So when you think about competitive advantage, you've got those 3 different levels. Obviously, firm, that's going to be yourself, your organization. Then you can have competitive advantage at that level. Then you can have competitive advantage at the industry level, but then also at that global level. So those 3 different levels of competitive advantage are talked about, are available, and there's differing views on those. So definitely one to be aware of. And one may have advantage at, say at the industry level, especially in healthcare. One may have advantage at the industry level, but not necessarily at the global level. And that's especially in the U.S. We may have advantage over something at our level in the U.S., but generally the U.S. is not killing it globally because globally there are many other countries that are just simply doing better from an outcomes perspective, etc. These are typically things that Americans don't like to hear, but globally, many other countries are providing much better healthcare than we are at a much lower cost. So globally, we may not have that competitive advantage, but industry-wide, we may have that competitive advantage here in our industry in the U.S. So. Last question. Shared assumptions are part of the organizational structure. That is actually, this is a true-false question, that is actually false. So shared, and this is again one of our favorite little trick kind of questions, and it's actually on page 134 in our text. There's kind of a list of all the components of the value chain. And it's not really a trick question. We had to read the question carefully. Those shared assumptions, which are all of those different shared assumptions that the employees, all of the folks that are part of service delivery in the organization, those assumptions that are shared within that group, that's all part of the organizational culture and not the organizational structure. When we're talking about structure, we're talking more about the divisions, the functions, etc. So when we're talking about shared assumptions, norms, values, those are cultural elements. When we start talking more about function and the matrix division, those types of things, then that's going to be more structural in nature. So, but those are all detailed, like I said, it's page 134 in the text. We'll give you some more of those details if you're looking to read up further on that. So that's all I have for this week. This week, week 5, your rough draft of your project is due. It is a draft. Don't feel that, I want to see some information in each of the areas, but I know some people submit to me a paper that you literally will just have to proofread again and submit again in a couple of weeks. So don't feel that you have to, complete the entire paper. It can be a draft, but please do make sure that you have information in all the pertinent areas that are noted, at least in an outline format, just so I know that you're working on each of the different areas and working toward getting that completed for week 7. But if you have any questions on any aspects of the paper, or if you need help with anything in particular, please just let me know. I'm happy to help out on that. So I'm looking forward to those elements for reviewing throughout the week, talking to everyone in the discussion boards, and I hope everyone has a great week. Thanks so much.